Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Warp Out Wednesday. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest. Last week I had a couple of guests on who had some very interesting words about a certain alliance, and so I figured, you know what, maybe let's hear what the said alliance has to say. So I'm joined with the esteemed leader of fraternity, Noraus here.
Hi. Just try to be more humble. I'm not the esteemed leader, and this is not a very special guest. Just a regular players, okay?
Fair
Very
enough.
random. But yeah, I do want to come out here because I watched the show last week and I heard some misconception about my alliance and the war. So I try to provide a counter perspective, just even out. Yeah. And I appreciate that you offered me the chance. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine. So I guess let's just dive right into those misconceptions.
Sure.
So probably the biggest thing that was said was that Brave essentially was going in saying like, "Hey, we're going to ally up with GTC because we don't want. We're essentially afraid that Frat's going to come in and take all of our
hmm
stuff."
hmm Yeah. The public point of view, like it was discussed many times. The war has been half year almost, or longer than that. I can't remember. So it was brought up several times, and every time they say we intimidate them and force them to bend the knee, which wasn't actually the truth. So, and every time I had to debunk it, and people not really listen. And we as fraternity as an alliance is super underrepresented on Reddit or any social platform that you players have, gathering. Because there is language barriers and there is like certain connecting issues on the internet. But yeah, I've always been trying, and thank you today. And just gonna blow this up one more time. So, hold on. Is my mic just not working?
No, you're coming through fine.
Hold on. Excuse me, just give me a sec.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, family issues. My housekeeper just put the fucking fire. Let me restart the PC. Got kicked out. So yeah. GTC was our neighbor, and we started war against Vota, but SFC kind of had this revelations coming up all the time. So he wrapped up his alliance, we from Vota, into a mini block, coalition called We From Block, and then later on they received this partnership from Brave, which kind of offered them some extra protection. But the war was always mm, about the leadership of Vota, like specifically. And then we, Duncan and I, we were having this conversation all the time. But in right before the war, I think, right before the war, both of us had a vacation. So the conversation was passed on to my co-executor Luke and to Shadow Armor. From those conversations, we perceived, I think, which was wrong, or they might have changed up their mind after we announced the war. But we perceived at that time the Brave wanted to eventually shift the status quo at that time, and they want to expand further into safer space. Um, then we thought about, yeah, maybe we can just evict Vota and give the space to Brave. It certainly sounded like a very bad spin at this time, and I don't think I had the same mind at all again after 6 months. But it was actually true by that time. So I think we made a mistake that by starting this war too soon before we can let Dunk make up his mind. and my FC wanted to humiliate them for this. So that we put up a content for Zai in 7RM. He got killed in the end. We harvest like 300 hack kills in the process. It doesn't. It feels good, but it doesn't help in the long run. And they were forever like Wolf repeatedly would brought that up to remind Brave that Fraternity will always be a threat to them. Yes, I think that they gain Brave support quite accidentally by that event. Yeah, that's pretty much how it started. Oh my gosh.
So just to summarize,
yeah.
So just to summarize, what had happened was Fraternity had a thing against Volta and wanted to take out Volta. The plan was then to offer Brave the space after taking it from Volta, but then
we hinted that to them. We hinted that to them, but I don't think they perceived it well. And it was gonna certainly look very bad for Brave because they were no longer the friend of medium-sized alliance. You know, they become kind of the no-block kneelers and the predators of medium alliances. Yeah, I don't think they will ever take this offer. Certainly not now.
Okay, and then so then Fraternity deployed a content citadel essentially to get some content, and then Volta used that as sort of a way to prove to Brave, hey, listen, Frat is your enemy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some argue. I have friends. Sorry, excuse me. I have like friends from the past who try to mediate between me and SFC, and I told them I trust in the medium groups, like the groups like Volta. They will do anything out of the contents, right? That's why any agreement with them won't be as stable as the ones we make with the blog, like the ones we make with Horde. That happened with Toilet Paper, Rogopala. You can all those code alliance, all those X tribute alliances that we evicted. Bandalog and Fastkick, they both reached out to me and to join Winter Coalition. But I didn't want Death Fatter because it was 6 months after World War II, and the trending on the street by that time was to disarm, and every block should disarm, downsize themselves, and disable this huge donut. So I said, no, you should probably seek another coalition. Like I would recommend, GTC. Ever heard of them? And they went up there, and they are fighting a war against me now. A war that I couldn't win I could not win all by myself in UTZ because I sent all these people to them. And yeah, that's kind of awkward. And for Dunk, he's obviously one of the very best people in this game has ever seen. We do not deserve them. We do not deserve him, I would say. Like he has one quite big flaw, I would say. He always cares too much for political correctness. Yeah. And Fraternity is super. I think so. Yeah, Fraternity is super underrepresented. Every medias and narratives are against us. And if he was to support Fraternity, he will face a lot of, it will be kind of like a mutiny in his middle management, I think. And let alone his line members. They will, just do the brave thing.
Why is it that you feel that there's a distrust for your alliance and any?
A distrust for my alliance? No, I trust Fraternity.
No. I'm saying, do you feel as though the rest of EVE has a distrust for your alliance?
They have distrust for blocks, and certainly it's actually kind of amazing that line members and the people who don't know about me, they will hate me for in their gut feeling that Fraternity is fucking evil, brought in RMT alliance blocking that's ever expanding like a cancer in the game. But the leaderships who actually know me, and we get along pretty well. Yeah, I will say that. I'll say it very confidently, and that I made a lot of friends among those alliance leaders.
Oh, I gotta say, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Me too. It's
I came to the show a little bit late, but
Okay.
I take it
it's fine.
you're the leadership of fraternity.
Yeah, I happen to be that for 6 years now.
Yeah, so you've got tribute, you've got Vinal, well, not Vinal, but Tenal and Branch and the Vale, kind of around that
Mm,
area, to my understanding.
yeah, kind of big, you know. I'm not gonna argue against that, but we, yeah. Let me just go back to Brave. Like we did no less than Volta. Volta helped them a lot in this relocating to Pure Blind issue, but we helped them. We helped the Brave no less than that in terms during the whole time of their relocation. Okay, so I conclude later that we just want to make them look better, and they wouldn't pick up a side with GTC. Shadow Armor actually say that he actually slipped out of his tongue last week. He said it won't be look good for Brave, and he quickly changed his words to it won't be good for Brave, right? I think he was saying the truth. Um, at first, it won't be look good for Brave. Um, but we will never know now. I'm not gonna offer anything cheap for Brave at this time, and they certainly are confident um, that we could make any progress, and they were gonna, soon end the war. But I just don't understand. You see, we're not putting much effort. Our members are playing the game as usual. Our FCs are not overworked in any way. While the enemies we are fighting right now, their FCs and their line members have to look up for ADMs, have to look up for cytogems. They have to constantly be watch out any times we form, uh, just in case we're not going after their iHubs. How is that a retreating condition for Winterco? Because we are on offense side, right? And there's no pressure on us, realistically. Why would I think I would end this war?
So that does raise a
I,
question. What are your war goals?
I just want to evict Volta.
So you just want that soft.
Yeah. No. Well, I'm not sure if I can talk about it, but we offered Declan to some other alliances that are more friendly to us, but we're not going to take them ourselves. No.
Okay, but do
I said
you have
evict
something
Volta.
against Volta or something?
I do. I
Okay,
have a lot of things against Volta. Yeah.
this is personal.
Uh, well, I still like SFC. We talk multiple times. I can agree. If I were SFC, if I lead Volta as Volta CEO, I would do the same. But that's not alliance fraternity would trust to have on their backyard. It always feels like a knife on my back.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much how we started the war and how we went all the way. Oh, and Shadow brought up that we didn't do much during the Chinese long week holiday because I wasn't there. Like there was no plan to do much. There was one pro attempt that we formed an alarm clock at 1 a.m. We formed about 300 heads, and they had 400. We have some caps, but it wasn't enough. And we found, I think, some caps. There was only one attempt, and there's not even like a much serious full committed attempt. I, they were assuming the war would end it after that long holiday, and now they were assuming the war would end it by this year. I hate to burst those bubbles for them, but it will never end until vote is out. Yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say to Shadow Armor. Oof, thank you. Feels good to spit it out.
I mean, I honestly only ever heard so when you previously had said that fraternities is very much underrepresented in Eve media. Yeah, I can agree that is true. I don't think I hardly ever hear like, oh hey, here's the fraternity side. It's always good fraternity, bad fraternity is all these things. So I definitely do get that. And it does make sense basically what you said. From Volta's perspective, if Frat is invading, it would make sense that they would need to go and say, okay, we need to try and get more allies for us.
They do. They do. They got Brave, which essentially Braves head diplos did a lot of background work to gather up the people who hate fraternity and willing to defend. Excuse me, willing to defend in terms of like we are the only deserving mid-sized coalition in the game. So please come to help us against these blocks. They're killing the games. They are just expanding to get more ratting empty space for the Chinese that the Europeans and Americans will never take it back. I took this. It was quoted from your last week show. Exactly the same word, dude. But yeah, that's how it went. And when I
don't recall who said that. Which who was it that said that again?
Oh my god, I can't remember. I only remember the very classic. Fraternity should go back to Serenity. Should go back to their own server.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That was Sabat.
I believe that was Sabat. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the blob. But anyway, I moved to the States when I was I think 18, and I stayed there for 6 years. Then moved to Singapore. I'm almost 30 now, so during my whole life I can recognize such people. And the question will be, dude, where are you from? Like, you sound awfully like American. Now you should go back to. You should probably go back to China. That's the same guy, like exactly the same kind of mentality that made for the.
I do wonder: are most of Frat's players Chinese, or are they from other countries from South Asia?
I would say 70% Chinese and 10% Chinese ethnic from other countries, and like 20% Europeans, Americans.
You're from like Singapore, you said?
Me personally, I'm from mainland China. No.
You're from China. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the very, very middle of that, like very central.
Do you still live in China, or?
I don't. I just passing by to take care of some family business. And I'll go out again. Yeah.
I see.
Not recommended. As a Chinese, I can safely say, not recommended to come.
Appreciate that information.
Yeah, it's not like a top secret, but yeah. I still feel offended people when say that you should go back to China or you should go back to Serenity. To me, it's the same thing. Right? I did not choose where I came from. I did not choose if CCP will make a contract with a Chinese company because the government regulations that the server has to be stored within mainland. That's why you have Serenity, the whole different server.
Well, I do. Have you played on Serenity?
I never did. Fraternity.
You've never played on Serenity, okay.
No. Fraternity will be 10 years old on Tranquility in next year. We are 3 months younger than Brave. We funded at, I think, 2013, August 23. Yes, that's right. I just checked that one. That's right. So yeah, stop telling us we should go back to fucking Serenity. Thank you.
I mean, that's fair.
Is that the end of a statement, or?
No.
Wait, what's going on? You just muted. I'm like, wait, what's going on?
No, it just feels good to say that out loud. That we are
I wasn't looking to strike a chord or anything, but
man, it feels like such a long journey. A decade.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Fraternity was that old.
Well, I mean, you can't go back to Serenity if you've never been there, so that's fair.
True, that's true. Mm-hmm. We just sent one alliance back, so I feel like we won't go back anytime soon. So you're stuck here.
Which alliance got sent back?
Just cope. Yeah, learn to cope.
Well, who got sent back?
Arms of Mango.
Oh yeah, they disappeared. What the hell happened to them? I was wondering what happened to Army, because I was told Army and Mango had come from Serenity, and I was like kind of frustrated about that. But then all of a sudden now they're just gone. That's kind of weird.
Some of their loyalists came to Snuff. So yeah, it's the very best, the elitist, all of the elitist people that still want to play. They brought up Snuff because they hated us there. It's like a fraternity haters club, and they got premium memberships by simply evicted by fraternity.
The one thing, and I've seen that this is a lot. It's almost like fraternity is sort of like the new goons in a way, because people just see this.
Fucking percent.
Yeah, because people just see this big alliance that almost seems unstoppable, is going around and just shooting everything, and then they just think like with the whole what was it, the boss thing, that was immediately turned into a narrative of, you know, fraternity evil, you know, they're trying to evict boss, you know, fraternity, they're bad. I mean, when you think about it, like that's kind of part of Eve. Like, I don't.
We're not actually unstoppable like things in about 10 years ago. Things were unstoppable, but we were stopped pretty hard here, right? You see, we made no progress, no fucking progress at all on our west side during the war. We haven't taken any action. Wolf said in their opinion that they have defensively won the war. Despite there's no such thing as defensively won. Um, we didn't make any progress on the map. It was zero. But I think we are slowly making some progress over the FCs and line members, especially brave members who claim to be like such independent. They will gradually get used to this, getting help from outside, from either GTC or Volta or now the Imperium. And they will get used to it, and they will get very comfy about that. And eventually, they will want to join the block again. I think that's the trending there.
I do wonder, how do you guys deal with recruitment when you essentially live in infamy?
Recruitment? You mean recruitment for alliances or?
Yeah, like for frat. Like, what's the recruitment strategy? Because I honestly wonder how that works, considering how you feel like there's a lot of anti-FRT sentiment. How do you get How do you get bodies? You know?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's huge impact. Like my co-executives were very blunt to me that Noraus, it doesn't help our recruitment. And you were perma-banned before. I was like, yes, okay.
You were banned?
But that was honest. Let me say, I was banned 5 years ago, Mississippi.
For RMT?
Yeah, I don't mind talking about it. I can ask questions.
No, I'm
yeah.
just trying to get it back.
That's a very stupid decision I made.
Okay.
Right. That's we should openly talk about that. No problem. No problem. But just go back to your question first about recruitment. For the Chinese, we basically get a free 100%, if not probably 80% of the new Chinese players influx into fraternity. There's no other more established solution. They could try Horde has a Chinese branch, and they could try Jakaras, and probably some Losa groups, some Wormhole groups. But the most of those Chinese players come to fraternity, I think. And for the non-Chinese, we only can recruit. It's very hard. It's super fucking hard. We can only recruit by recommendations by those corps existing corps continue to expand, and by probably sometimes occasionally corps will leave their previous alliance and they will reach out to me or Luke or one of our diplos, say, I want to try fraternity. They're not convinced yet. They just want to try and give a trial in fraternity for about like 2 to 3 months and see if we fit each other. That happens a lot, and we used to have many corps. Now we lost a lot of corps to Horde and to Guns sometimes. That happens, right? So people come and go, and we were big in UTZ once, and then we were small again, and it kind of repeated itself every few years. But we still, obviously, my mind has changed a lot by this war, and I realized I cannot just run an alliance that has a very strong CNTZ arm while my EUTZ or USTZ is basically paralyzed. It's not going to work. So I didn't want to recruit much because I feel like that was we had allies before. We blew up Panfan, the entire Zhong region before, and they were basically outsourcing our EUTZ in the US time zone at those times. Now that we have an INIP, but we're no longer at blue status, I feel like something I have to do for myself, some ops and objectives, some fleets, are just two fraternity or winter coast interests. Those are, then we have to do it ourselves. We have to have our own UTC this time. Yeah, I would say our recruiting strategy would be more aggressive in future, more inclusive. We always been inclusive lines, just people don't want to join up.
Right.
Yeah, reach out further for those crops and potential crops and alliances who wants to join us.
I see. Is that actually well that no that actually raises an interesting question. Is language barrier ever an issue at FRT?
No, it's not. We have translators in almost every cases. Our if say if there's an internal drama between a Chinese guy and a British guy, and their directors will go together, and there will be a translator in the room. And the three people come discuss what happens and etc. etc. Same for the playoffs. The true barrier is actually, I think, internet might be one because the Chinese can log in Discord. It's blocked in China.
Right. So how do you deal with all of the network?
Yeah, we have a fucking tool system. We operate like a Fortune 500 corp company who sets their server in Hong Kong, and I pay really lot of money for that every month. So we have two Mumble, two Discord, essentially two open IT system Discord to comply the regulations of our local authority.
So that's a lot of work to get to play
Yeah,
with
I
the
don't
rest
know
of the
why.
world. Yeah.
It feels like a job now.
Amen to that. Eve, the second job that you pay for.
I mean, what gets me is that you have to have essentially like full-time IT staff. For an alliance of that scale, you almost need that.
We're not a big alliance, but we're certainly bigger than some small companies in real life. Yeah, the ITs, they're not working in real life. They're not working full time. I'm not paying them anything, unfortunately.
I say it as it's a bit of a
Yeah, I understand.
yeah.
So there was something said last show about how it all comes back to fraternity burner missions. Apparently, well, what was said, I think it was Shattered Armor that said, yeah, Shattered Armor had talked about how you had requested jump bridge access from, I think it was Banderlogs, so that supposedly your members could go and run burner missions. What do you say?
I would say those two events happen around the same time, but they're not directly the causation of one another. The VRM was shit at the time, so she hasn't made the change yet. So we figured out doing missions might be good for the line members' income. And Pureblind's very close, and they have sisters that have Mortis Legion. And I request if we can get an NC from D7T to. We need an IHAB. We need one IHAB in D7T to connect the NSPlex. Was Banderlocks off? We had no agreements with Banderlock, and told them, "Can you give me this IHAB, please?" And they kind of refused, and we killed it. And later on, they tried to join us later on, as I said. By the time I told them no, sorry, I couldn't. And on the other hand, like I said, it was a war against the Volta, so we were primarily eyeing on Declan, because when Toilet Paper and Boss and all those people, Code Alliance, they joined up GTC. They were using Declan as a free channel to going inside of Reno, to going inside of French. You can block Reno. You can block Reno all the jump freighter access if we get control 5ZXX. I told SFC that if you can shut down this guy's access. He wasn't active at that time. When I reached out to Francis, and to Wolf, they were not super arrogant. I think. Noraus, you're making such exaggeration of the situation. They're not that dangerous, and they're not harassing you exclusively. So please just shut the fuck up and go away. And then send him the last message that I will take care of the situations for you by myself. And that was my last message to, I think, Wolf, before the war.
Alrighty, that makes sense.
I see diplomacy right there.
Yeah, not the best people. I made so many mistakes when talking with the Median alliances before, and I think this time it was just the mistake I made with Dunk. I didn't have enough time for him to think through this. Yeah, it was such a tragedy, I would say. I've been thinking if Dunk, accelerate his retirement because of this war. I thought about this several times.
I was gonna ask
might,
about that. If you had any
yeah,
comments on that whole thing.
yeah. Oh, it's always sad to see one players go away, especially as such extraordinary leaders like him. Um, yeah, I don't know. But we talked only once after his retirement announcement. I saw he was in tears in this announcement. I was checking out if he was okay. And yeah, we had a good conversation after that, and we welcomed each other and say fair each other's goodbye, and I promise to visit him someday. Mm, yeah, in his country.
That I can respect that.
Yeah, I really like him. Just sad that we have to face a situation in this. He shouldn't be the CEO, man. Like, imagine if he was only one of the FCs of middle management. How wonderful it would be, right? Making so much friendship out of it without having to deal with the CEO issues. 'Cause you see, the alliance CEOs in the game, mm, we need sometimes put our personalities away. So a personal connection between the CEOs would not necessarily explain or be utilized between the alliance. The alliance business are more, I would say, more serious sometimes, like a statecraft.
Right. Also, just to quickly interject, I totally forgot to introduce him when he joined. Noraus, this is our resident torpedo delivery agent, Luigi.
Yes, of course. I'm an agent with Wingspan Delivery Services.
So back on to the.
I checked your profile last week. After last week, I checked everyone's profile, and then yeah, I'm thrilled to see that you guys.
Checked out my killboard stats.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can check, dude. I'm thrilled that you guys are still active. How's your business? Do people still find you?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't see any reason for Wingspan to not be active. We got a lot of stuff going on despite the fact that we've had a change in leadership. But to be fair, while there's been a change in leadership, there hasn't been really a change in policy. We're still pretty much the same as we've always been.
Cool.
In fact, quick aside, big announcement. In a couple days, we are dropping episode 2 of Operation Red Giant. Big shit. Y'all guys want to be there on YouTube. Wingspan Eve TV. Check it out. Anyways, good to do.
Can I find the episode 1 on that?
What's that?
Can I find the episode 1 on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's already up. Episode 1's already up. Episode 2 is premiering in, I think, 2 days.
Great. Honestly, never watched that before. I would check now.
Yep, just great Red Giant shenanigans.
Thank you. Oh.
I feel like there's an innuendo in there somewhere. I don't know where though.
No, it's very literal. I mean, Red Giant is a wormhole type. We've also just recorded so much footage in that chain. It's just, it's great.
How big is your alliance now nowadays? I see you probably have 40, 30 people on the ZK platform.
We have like active, in terms of active players, yeah, it's like about what you see on Zkill. I mean, obviously the actual player count, as you see on the corp description, is going to be a bit bigger, but we generally maintain some decent activity, though. We're always looking for new agents, by the way. For all those who have covert ops skills and would like to come and deliver with us, please do apply.
You still live in the C1, C2?
Not so much live. Not so much live.
Kind of nomadic.
We don't live anywhere.
Yeah, I see.
Darwin, Darth in chat says scary wormhole people are scary.
Maybe.
Well, I think that wormholes aren't all that scary. You just have to learn a bit of that submarine warfare in space. It's a different kind of way to play the game, but it's truly worth exploring. I'd say everyone should have a taste of wormholes. In fact, do Noblox have wormhole divisions? Like significant professional wormhole divisions?
I don't think that ever works because the Noblox, they insist on the central commanding system, and wormhole usually have to, by the nature, have to divert from that. So the Noblox doesn't like it. They don't essentially can like, if I form up a strat up, can you make it in wormhole? No, right? And you have to find a way to come back to your home. So
but don't you also need like people with professional expertise in that field of game of playstyle? Like you need that as well.
Yeah, a few alliances will value your skills that, having a speciality in this wormhosting trainings in terms of connections. Since we nerfed the K162 long time ago, it wasn't as useful as before. So I think from the Noblock point of view, it's just not that important anymore. I only know that Initiative used to have one branch that's after Ski XOP. Right, yeah, I pronounced his name right. Last year, I think, or 2 years before. That's the only case that I can remember. Yeah.
Okay.
But I had a personal wormhole experience. I lived in for crabbing. That was before the CCP changed the capital escalation. I think we Fraternity were living in Korea at the time, and I feel bored like orbiting not essentially orbiting. It was carrier ratting with geckos. I got tired of that and moved to wormhole one day with 3 of my characters. I paused in Brooklyn and Noraus. Lived there for 6 months. It feels so good, man. I can understand what you say about living in there and just immerse yourself with the wormhole experience. It's such a good time.
I think it's also interesting to play wormholes from the playstyle that was originally intended of them, where it was basically purely just somewhere to transit through and to fight in. Because obviously, you've probably heard the story told 1,000 times. CCP's intent was no one was supposed to live there, but
really, but why would it make like?
That was the way it was designed originally, but then people thought, well, I have enough space in a DST to bring a POS, and so now you have what wormhole space is after, and then Citadels come out, and then people realized, well, an Orca can bring a Citadel reliably into a wormhole of up to 4 Dazar size, and if you wanted to build a Keepstar, theoretically, you could just build one.
Yeah, it made so many more systems if they only intended to make them like a passage. 3,000, 2,000 wormhole systems.
Well, still, there's a lot of places that don't have wormhole connections at high sec. There's still thousands of systems with K-space, and there's a lot of transit in between wormholes to wormholes that don't have K-space connections. So it's like a branching network of new gates that move around essentially. That you can transit through, but you can also fight in. You can make money in deeper class space, and then you just have to work harder to get out of it. But then some people realized you could just stay there.
Yeah, that's our human nature to find a safe harbor out of the dangers. And if we can find a way to anchor POS, Jesus, I bet the first time people had a POS in there was such an exciting moment.
I would imagine it didn't take long, but yeah, they had a POS up and boom, that's where it all started. I mean, you know what I was wondering, if you guys don't have dedicated wormhole groups though. So there are SIGs though, I believe, right? I hear about these special interest groups in like Noblox. I take it that they're like special forces in a sense.
For me, there is a way to keep. Some of our members love wormholes. They love farming in the wormhole. They love farm others in the wormholes. But I have to leave a room for them. Otherwise, they'll just leave my lines into other groups, right? So I have to set up some special interest group for these people. And yeah, I think most of them still based from Vale. They were day tripping to wormholes and fun targets.
I take it they would take a null static and then just rage roll it until they go into friendly space.
Well, we used to have a C26, a C2 with sorry, a C2 with C6 and null static. That's only 10 exist in the game. But I lost it honestly. I lost it to Jakaras. We were not defending. Nobody was using that. Wormhole was not great at that time. There was no one. During World War II,
That's
we
a
blew
killer
up.
hole to live. That's a out of 10 holes in the chain. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. I still have a cedar out there, but yeah,
yeah.
during World War II, we blew up so many people, and eventually those the wormhole six fails. Like, sorry, Norris, this we still love you, but we can't stay with fraternity anymore because we have no confidence at all for 2 years, 1 year.
Right.
That's the first time I can remember the first time a Chinese group uh, that is split from out of fraternity for a non-dramatic reason. They just want contents and they want PvP. And they can do that within fraternity during War B2 in one hole. It's not realistic. Forget that.
So you had talked a little bit earlier about sort of disarming the null blocks. I'm actually kind of interested to hear your opinions on that.
Let's go AFK real
Mm-hmm.
quick. Yeah, you guys keep talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a genial moment that I feel every now leaders was trying to de-accelerate, find a clear border for themselves, and release the smaller guys out of their blocks and form more alliances that is neutral towards each other. But later on, eventually, later on, the Southerners they starting to fight against each other. They starting to make nips, and Brave moved out of Germinate to Pureblind to find some new friends there. That's essentially forming a mini coalition. And one of the biggest things happened around that time was Test um, kind of dead. You know, they lost several corps to Horde at those times, and making Horde one of the biggest, strongest no block in the game, and was is still the case. Horde is it's at its golden age right now, with NC and PL not so active. PL is much more active now, but with NC not so active, um, Horde is making so much influence in Zhong region, and they successfully united the entire Zhong region together with the means of their super cat umbrella. Uh, yeah, they're just reversing the trend completely, and I don't think that's the mindset for Noblack anymore. You know, Mitani stepped down. Guns is kind of in a not so great shape right now. Uh, they are shrinking in their activities. They're shrinking their size. They are struggling to even set up a rallying group. They call it Beehive. It's all because Horde has so much more advantage over them in numbers and so many more active FCs than Guns do. So yeah, I would bet that Usher. I'm not sure what he's doing right now, but if I were Usher, I would look up for more groups to join the Goon Swarm. Not essentially the Imperium, but join the Goon Swarm to boost the members. That's counterproductive to what I said above. You know, we had a small window and a small chance there to disarm. I don't think the chance is there anymore. Obviously, CCP might intervene like they do with the hack. That's a good chance. With hack with minions online, you will never get smaller groups. Our numbers are always, if everyone's playing minions, it's always come down to plastic, bigger N plus one. Now the hack man is gone. It's completely gone, I would say. Hack, it's completely outmatched by BC and battleships, which means the small groups actually have better chance fighting against us. That's a positive step, but that's not enough. I think I'm looking forward for more changes, radical changes from CCP about how to forcing the blocks from exercising their influence over a vast distance. From Feather was right about 1 point, and we were staged in 4H, and we can reach to their space. We can reach Brave Stager in 11 jumps. we can reach Metropolis in 9 jumps. That's 30 light years, maybe, in maybe 10 minutes.
And about
Wow.
Blop's jump ranges?
Yeah, by Splex. 30 light years, that's 2 mid for a jump freighter, and we can go cross that in 10 minutes with Splex. Previously, the meta was even worse because you can bring 200 hacks over, but now with battleships, with BCs prevailing, command ships prevailing the meta, it's harder to just block the fuck out of the smaller guys. Everyone should just rejoice now. Dude, it's so much better. But the problem right now, see, capital price is one of the issues. It's going up crazy right now. I don't know why. I haven't been much myself into the industrial, but capital is the king in this meta. You were all using battleships, and capital is the king. And they made Dragon Fact so expensive. It's almost a pre-packaged full build price now. I'm not even talking about the faction variant of Dreadnoughts. I'm talking about T1's regular Dreadnoughts. It's 3.5 bill to build for me, and it's even more expensive for the smaller guys. If one alliance doesn't have enough capital ships, how can they fight in this meta? There's no 100 minutes anymore. You have to rely on battleships, and you have no capital advantage. That would result directly into less fights, in my opinion. I'm not sure why they can just make capitals more easily accessible to people. That would definitely stimulate more fights. Well, I'm not a CSM. Certainly, there are people in CCP working hard towards this direction, I hope.
Does Frat have any plans to run a CSM next term?
We have one CSM right now in CSM. Sorry, for Fraternity, we have one CSM right now. And I think next year will be quite important to have this consistency to continue to have one fraternity candidate, because we represent 80%, like I said, 80% of the Chinese community, maybe a quarter of the whole server.